This is Harry Gines. Today I'm bringing a presentation that will primarily be of an audio. The audio will depict Abraham Lincoln's 13th article. Now, it may not be shown to you today, but the thing about it, everyone knows what Lincoln wrote. There are tens of thousands of people that know what Lincoln wrote. So it won't be shown to you today, but yet I will be making some analogies as for how Harry Gines versus the United States could be used in an understanding of reparations for U.S. blacks of African descent. Now, the audio will take you on a time travel as I normally do with The Invisible Man. So in trying to get everybody on a page so that they will know how the video is being produced today, you will be seeing pictures of the Kennedy family. Now, the Kennedy family is being used so that you might understand today the word differentiate. To differentiate in term is very difficult for African descent to recognize a good white man versus a bad white man. Now, all races have good and bad, but yet it is very difficult for a descendant of a U.S. African slave who is still being oppressed in the 21st century. So the term today is differentiate, and we're using it with hopes of bringing a better solution to be understood for reparations. Thank you, and if you allow me to get to my audio presentation, again, we will be using the Kennedy family as a depiction just for the sake of something to use as a balancing scale. You know, the Kennedy family has been a supporter of U.S. blacks of African descent. And if it's any support that you could possibly find, that you could say all white men are not the same. Now, we would have to understand that there are differences amongst the races of being good and bad. Now, if I could get straight to the audio, please allow me to do so. Thank you. And please enjoy this audio because it does come from some study that I've done within the Article 13 of Abraham Lincoln. Thank you. This is Harry Gines, the first black man of reparations in U.S. history, coming to you today with another presentation of The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man, as we know, is Ralph Ellison, who depicted a black man in the 1940s as being invisible as he walked through the society of America and the world. As he walked through the society, no one really gave him much attention, but yet there are people who have a problem of differentiating here in the 21st century. In the 21st century, we find ourselves not knowing what is a good white man and a bad white man. Now, we can make it just that simple. And if I can get straight to the meat, because this is a very long presentation that I have for you today. But to know the difference between a good white man and a bad white man, you could very easily say that the Kennedy family set the standard. The Kennedy family, you can rest assured that if it wasn't for Robert Kennedy was able to have the vision that there would be a black man as U.S. president. Now, such a visionary to be able to say he could even see in the future that there could be a black man in the White House. Robert Kennedy was able to say that in a time when, under the civil rights movement of the era of Martin Luther King, but yet Martin Luther King had already passed. Now, if we look at it and trying to understand differentiating, it is not possible, as Harry Guine sees it, to eliminate a white man from the advancement of black people. Somewhere you would have to have a white man to understand what your needs and requests are. Now, in saying that, you're not coming as a beggar. You see what your needs and requests are. You're not coming as a beggar. Under Harry Guines versus the United States, case number 99-10-255, that gives you a legal position that you can request to the United States government your position. And that is what I'm here today to bring to the table, a clarity of why the black man in the 21st century is still in a state of poverty. Even in the days of Martin Luther King, men such as Stokely Carmichael was someone who recognized that there was a poverty issue, an imbalance of poverty versus the wealth of the United States. And as he tried to advance himself, he always met with a lack of funds to get his presentations or his message forward. He was shunned. That's Stokely Carmichael. Now, this being Robert Kennedy, and again, Robert Kennedy is someone, like I said, to help as we look back. In the 21st century, we're always looking back at other icons that are no longer around. Now, that's a wonderful thing to be able to know your heritage and your lineage of who got you in the condition as far as elevating you economically. It would be good white men. Yes, it would be good white men. Good white men, I mean, even if you looked at it in the sense of Jackie Robinson, you see, there are always good white men that recognize the skills and talents of a black man. So, with that being said, we must recognize today that there are tax issues. Tax issues are something that I strongly believe can make the difference with reparations. Now let's just look at the bandwagon that everybody gets on. Every year you have a tax return. Now, as a suggestion, and mind you, I am saying this as a suggestion for the bandwagon that we all get on, being tax refunds. Now, if you look at it, on the application or the form from the IRS, there is no section. Now, you can correct me if I'm right or wrong, but there's no section that actually, depicts non-citizenship. Now, if there is such a section or box to check for non-citizenship, Harry Guine strongly suggests to the IRS that it is possible that the 3/5 that is still in the Constitution is there for an edge of the black descendants of slavery in the U.S. The black descendants of slavery in the U.S. here in the 21st century believe themselves to being U.S. citizens, contrary to what Lincoln wrote. And today, that is what we're going to do, is bring a clarity of exactly what Lincoln wrote. That way, when you do mix the taxation, the economics to 3/5, it would make sense to you. So that the case of Harry Giles versus the United States, it would be one that you can say you recognize how it could be used to bring about reparations. Now again, the suggestion is that if you are a non-citizen of the United States, bringing yourself into a class of 3/5, in which Lincoln knew it still existed in the Constitution. Therefore, under taxes, you would pay less taxes as a rich man, a rich black man. On your IRS form that you file every year for taxes, it would be able to show that you are a descendant of a slave, due an edge under 3/5 laws of taxation. Now those laws, they are still in the Constitution. So we're not looking to do anything that's illegal or fraudulent. That's not the point here. We must remain with the law. And the law is always in favor. It is always in favor of the less fortunate. That's how you find fairness and justice. Now, again, on your tax return form, you're looking to make a suggestion to the IRS that you will require a box to establish your non-citizenship. Okay, as a poor man, a poor black man, what advantage does he have? What type of advantage does a poor black man have making minimum wage? And here we go again. This is all connected with economics, that yet making minimum wage, what advantage do you have being a U.S. citizen? Now that is the point that really needs to be clear. Lincoln knew that a black man would need an edge, and he relied on the fact that the Constitution still had 3/5 within it. So with that being said, Lincoln, knowing 3/5 is still in the Constitution, and it remains there today, although Lincoln's writings never seem to surface, we must do a deep time travel and do the study on what Lincoln wrote. Now, if you bear with me, we can get straight to the meat of examining what Lincoln wrote, and there are probably tens of thousands of people that know this. These documents do exist, but yet not knowing how to apply them, they simply accept. They accept the same pattern that the slave accepted. You could give a slave anything, and he would always be having great gratitude for it, because his conditions will always be worse than being whipped and abused, to go through his daily life that way. So you could practically give a slave anything, and he would be happy with that. So when you're looking at what a slave would be happy and content with versus minimum wage, which is connected with slavery, the freeing of a slave. So when you're looking at that, and then you add the fact that the 14th Amendment has a black man under the belief that he's a citizen, but yet the same token, when the 14th Amendment was being passed, so was Jim Crow laws. So the deprivation is easily shown that there was never a time that there was anything equal between a black man and a white man. There was never anything really equal. So the black man who would be at the level of a minimum wage, his hope was already crushed. It was already crushed at the beginning. Once the president after Lincoln done away with Lincoln's writings, and they've yet to surface today in a meaningful way until Harry Giles versus the United States has applied it. Now, if I can just get straight to the meat of trying to examine what Lincoln wrote and what was his intent. If we can look at that, then we will be able to understand a little bit more better as for why I say that the taxation is the path and the position of the black man. When I say black man, of course that means woman. The black race, period, in the United States. Under 3/5 laws, you would be entitled to paying less taxes if you were a rich man. If you were a poor man, what is the advantage to you at 3/5? Well, you would practically be at the mercy of the government all your life until you became economically able to gain what you're looking for, some equality. And however you would gain that equality, how would you be able to do it? You were a man making minimum wage. So at some point, if you look at the government end of it, they in turn can have you drafted as being whole citizen. So these are things that we want to make sure when you're running to the polls to vote. I'm not here to try to disrupt the election or anything. All I'm trying to say is it definitely makes you a whole citizen, eligible for the military draft. So nothing illegal there. You was not expected to be drafted by any white man looking to go around the globe having wars. A black man is not to be drafted into the military under Lincoln. So we have to understand that you being a U.S. citizen, as a poor man, I mean, why are you in the midst of something that you've already had enough struggle and deprivation before you was even drafted? You see, so it's a constant battle of trying to get the world to recognize that reparations are due the descendants of African American descent who were slaves. Okay, so that's where we're at right now. And if I could, like I said, let me just get straight to the meat. And we do want to give Robert Kennedy, all due respects for being able to know that differentiating, he would be someone that we can all use as a balancing scale. We can use Robert Kennedy as that. So let me get to straight of the meat and recognize that there will be some white men that you would have to come in contact with. You can't just separate yourself and just create something up. You just can't separate yourself like that. You would be doing yourself really an injustice. So let me just get straight to the meat where we can find what Lincoln wrote. No, not that one. Be patient with me, please. Be patient. I believe it's this one. Okay, here we go. Now we should be able to see that, okay? Bring that as clear to the screen as possible. That is the Article 13 by Abraham Lincoln and his intent for the freed slave. So we can see that. We can see that right there. It's very clear as for what Lincoln wrote. Now, that must be examined so that people will be able to know you're not a U.S. citizen. There's no black person in America that is actually a U.S. citizen, unless you were connected with the military somehow, where you maybe volunteered or may have been forced into a draft. You were forced into a draft, not something that you would be willing to do. It just seemed like you had been such under a deprivation that you knew which way to turn. You had nowhere which other place to turn. So if we're looking at this, and we definitely want to be able to get as much of the written language in as possible with this, So if I could proceed, I will do some scrolling for you. That way, you would know exactly. And take some pictures. Take some pictures of that, so you can be able to count, 1 through 20. There were 20 sections set forth by Lincoln. And today we're going to bring all those sections to you so that you will be able to understand your rightful position under 3/5 in the Constitution. So if you're taking a picture of that, that should be coming into your screen very clearly. And if I can continue to scroll, please. Okay, now we're up to like 14. So as you're reading that, you will be able to know that there's certain things that were set forth for you that you never got. You never got the how you say the 40 acres and the mule, that never happened, but yet you've heard of that. You've heard of that, and yes, that is true. And this is part of the language, that was set forth. Okay, now, where are we? Let's see if we can find those others. Yeah. You can see that. You should be able to see section 15, starting with section 15. Now, section 15 will go through 15 through 20. So, if you're looking at it, there you're able to see that there's nothing in it that's mentioned anything about you being a U.S. citizen. This is what Lincoln wrote. And it being under 3/5, and the Jim Crow laws that followed once Lincoln was assassinated, and then the 14th Amendment comes in, have you believing that you are a U.S. citizen. That is not true at all. The 14th Amendment had nothing to do with black people. It was actually for, there was a white, I can't call her name, but there was a white woman, who sought in court to have her land back. She won her land back. She won her land back, through courts, using the 14th Amendment as the foundation for it. That was her legal position. But yet prior, there was no such a law because everything was under a military that you had confiscated. That's what you hear about the Confiscation Act. Later that might be shown to you within these presentations that I have. So as I'm giving you these presentations, you should be looking at these documents, and saying to yourself, well, you were a descendant of a slave, so how did things ever get you to thinking that things would be equal for you? That is why 3/5 is in the Constitution. That is your edge. That is the edge for the black man and black woman in the United States. You see, and like I had tried to say earlier, under a suggestion, like I said, be aware. We don't want to come across as doing something illegal or something fraudulent. That's not what this is about. All forms are revised. So under some revision, asking the IRS to have a section for non-citizenship of African descent, there's nothing difficult about that. Nothing difficult at all. Asking the IRS to have a box to check that you are of African descent, and that under such laws of Lincoln, as Harry Gines versus the United States has set forth, you should be entitled to pay less taxes. Now, does that equal up to reparation? It is a start. It would be a start because, like I said, if you're rich, you would pay less taxes. And if you're less fortunate, then too, you are establishing your position as a less fortunate black person who would be entitled to reparations. So just keep that in mind as we're looking at these documents here. That will conclude our presentation I am Harry Gines, and it has been my pleasure to bring you an audio today that I have tried to reach the world. The presentation is something that is something for us to think about, because there has to be a starting point for reparations. And I could go on, and I will continue to go on for you to show you that the black man in the United States has accepted, in the 21st century, the same pattern of a slave. Now, what was good for a slave who was uneducated, as I tried to explain, as society expects someone to continue to believe a certain thing that's not true, how is it that you can continue to expect that and yet you say people are being educated? You live in a society of falsehood, and it's time that you recognize how you could, as an individual, make a difference. This is Harry Gines, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And if you could make some effort, every individual, you don't have to wait until someone comes along. Oh, well, I'm waiting till somebody do it first. Well, I've already done it first by establishing the civil case. You, as an individual, would have to step up and recognize your non-citizenship is the rightful U.S. way in dealing with slavery. You have to recognize that, because as one president succeeds the next, this is what happens. And it's been going on for a very long time that no president, no U.S. president has challenged what Lincoln wrote and to set it correctly. Because the 14th Amendment, that is what most people try to rely on as you being a U.S. citizen. That is very vague, especially when it was used for white people to regain their land. Now that case would be something like the slaughterhouse case. I believe it's like the slaughterhouse. Now I don't remember or recollect offhand the woman's name, but it was within a slaughterhouse. That what comes to mind, called the slaughterhouse case. Now such a case will show how the 14th Amendment was to the advantage when it was passed for white people to regain their land from the Civil War, it being confiscated because they, as history notes, the South lost the war, but yet all the land was reissued to them after Lincoln was assassinated. So that's the most important part of the 14th Amendment. And all the Jim Crow laws could never make any sense as to saying that you have been equal to a white man. The black man who is on minimum wage, you're only equal to a white man when it comes to being drafted into the military. That is when you're being sought. So at minimum wage, keep in mind that is the connection with slavery, minimum wages. So today I'm going to end this presentation so that people can have some room to think. You need some room to think and to understand that you don't have to be afraid of the IRS or the fact of 3/5 being in the Constitution. The problem has been that under an applied science to political science, you really don't execute anything. You just accept. If you're skilled and talented, more likely you fall into a mainstream. The mainstream, which you have set forth the standards to speak for the less fortunate, that is something that me personally, I would rather you say, well, why not ask the poor black man rather than having a rich man speak on behalf of the poor? Because you're never going to get the truthfulness of how minimum wage is wrong for a descendant in the 21st century now, that is something that makes no sense at all. How is it possible that minimum wage, and there's always some state speaking as if they want to raise minimum wage, but yet you will never be able to compensate truly as Lincoln wrote. And it just keeps being watered down and passed down from generations to generations, the same acceptance that a slave done. I'm far different than my ancestors, and I speak sometimes in a way that people, want to say I'm being disrespectful. But the realism is Malcolm X and Martin Luther King only dreamed of the things that Harry Gines has done. That's all they could have ever done. They could never have seen such a case as Harry Gines versus the United States. They had no vision for that. But it is here. And you, as an individual, need not wait for anyone. A civil case is for everyone that chooses to execute their rights under 3/5. That way you would be more suited under a class as Lincoln prescribed for you. That is the message that I'm trying to bring. Now, if you were to allow me just to say my farewells, and I hope that you've enjoyed the presentation, and give some thought to everything that you've heard. Thank you for listening, and I am Harry Gines.